And News Now from Fox continues. I'm your host, Mike Page. As we continue to roll on here, well, the markets are surging, but that's not the only thing. When you talk about the Dow Jones, there's another thing that is surging, and we're talking about digital currency and digital assets to get us a little bit better insight about what's going on with Bitcoin and others. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin, it's at all-time highs right now. So we're bringing in Douglas Borthwick, the CMO of INX Limited, to get us some better insight of why this is happening. Douglas, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you? It's great to be on.
Good, good. Yeah, we're doing great here. So we're going to get into what you guys do at INX Limited in just a bit, but can you explain to our viewers, why are we seeing this surge in Bitcoin?
Yeah, and I would say it's less of a surge in Bitcoin and more a collapse in the dollar. If you look at the dollar against the euro, against the yen, against the Swiss franc, against any currency in the world, it's going lower. And it's going lower because the government has been printing money, and they're printing money on the back of, look, COVID's come, it's bad for the economy, let's keep the economy stable in some way. We could raise taxes to pay for this, or we could just print more money. And printing more money in an election year just makes a lot more sense. So that's been happening, but not just in the US, in Japan, in Europe, all around the world. And folks are looking at that and saying, wait a minute, if there's now 3 times the number of dollars in circulation that there were a year ago or 2 years ago, maybe I should be holding on to something where it doesn't get inflated. And Bitcoin is one of these things that there's a fixed supply, there's a fixed amount of it. And folks can buy it, and it's sort of like a life raft for them, and that they feel like they're buying it because their dollars, now it's not worth $1, it's worth 2 or 3 or 4 because they're printing so many, but that Bitcoin stays the same. And so it's going up in price. Now, 3 years ago, it would be someone in their basement, and they'd have said, look, you got to buy Bitcoin. I've got 5 followers on Twitter. I'm telling everyone I know, Bitcoin's great, and they'd have bought $5,000 worth in the market. That $5,000 worth from 5 years ago is probably worth around $130 million today.
Wow.
And now the guys that are saying you got to buy Bitcoin are guys like Grayscale Investments. This is someone with 270 billion under management. They're not saying it should go to 20,000. They're saying it should go to 400,000 based on their fundamental analysis. And just to dip their toes in as an institution, they decided to buy $500 million. But it's not just them. It's every one of these large asset managers that has decided that, look, we can buy gold as an inflation hedge, or maybe we buy Bitcoin, but Bitcoin just seems to be an easier thing to buy right now. And if they buy that, JP Morgan came out with a study. And in that study, they said if every asset manager was to spend 1% of their portfolio on Bitcoin, that would have to be $600 billion worth of Bitcoin. Now, the market cap for Bitcoin today is only 300 million. So you're talking about a huge price move that has to happen in order for that to happen. In fact, on my calculation, I believe there's only about 20% of the supply of Bitcoin that's on exchanges to buy, that's available.
Wow.
That's 3.5 million Bitcoin that are out there. So for 3.5 million Bitcoin to equal that $600 billion that people want to buy, Bitcoin's got to go to at least $170,000. So you're looking at sort of 2 things. You're looking at a fixed supply, but demand is now growing, and it's growing from the guy in his basement buying $5,000 now to being these large institutions that are buying it at $500 million in a clip.
And how do you think that shift happened? Like you said, when it was just people that were on websites talking about this and in their basement, like you say, but how did they get this shift now where hedge fund managers are talking about this and where it's the talk of the town now?
Well, a lot of the time, no one wants to be the first. I think Mike Novogratz was sort of one of the first big macro managers that came in and said, look, I really like this. And then after about 2 years, Paul Tudor Jones came out and says, I really like this. And then you saw, Saylor come out with MicroStrategy, his corporation, and he put $500 million into it. And suddenly you get a lot of guys now feeling a little bit more comfortable about taking that, what was seen as a fringe view, and sort of getting involved. But what you find is this pile-on effect, and that, now everyone gets judged based on how's your competitor doing in terms of their returns. Well, MicroStrategy, a corporation that only about 3 months ago put $250 million into Bitcoin, has seen their money double. And so when you see guys like this, and now you see funds investing in it, you've got to keep up with the Joneses as a fund. You can't be sitting there and your boss says to you, Why is that fund up 60% or 100% and you're only up 18? And you say, well, look at the market. The market's up 18%. They say, no, no, no. You needed to have Bitcoin in your portfolio. And so there's that keep up with the Joneses where folks suddenly feel, you know what, I've got to buy some as well. I got to get involved.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about your company, INX Limited. Explain to people that don't know what you guys do. And I mean, you guys made history there as the first security token IPO that was cleared by the SEC. So explain that.
Well, it's pretty exciting. Digital assets have always been around, at least for the last 5 years, but the only people that could buy them were rich people, I guess, accredited investors. And we said, look, digital assets are going to be the future because of the nature of you get rid of a lot of middlemen. And we said, and the SEC said, well, that doesn't exist. Retail to buy a security, a digital security doesn't exist. We said, okay, we'll create it. We spent 3 years with the SEC creating a security, and we're actually doing our IPO on it. And what it means is we've cut out the venture capital guys, the private equity guys, and we've said to retail, to average, everyday people, you can come in and you can buy us pre-revenue. We're about to go live in 3 months' time. We're going to have a great, a platform for trading of cryptocurrencies. But even more than that, we've got one of the only platforms for trading of digital securities. And the SEC chairman has said he expects that all assets will move on to the blockchain. And that means that forget about Bitcoin with its 600 or 300 odd billion market cap. When you look at securities, you're looking at maybe a couple of $100 trillion that will be trading on our exchanges. And we're saying to people, look, if you want to get involved in crypto and you want to get involved in digital assets, why don't you join our team? Come on board, invest today, and you're investing, you're getting a front seat into this huge digital migration because it's going to happen and it's going to be a big shakeup to all the banks. And it's going to be a big shakeup to the New York Stock Exchange, to others. It's sort of like when horses and buggies were still running around and everyone said, well, that's very inefficient. You're feeding the horse. These guys are driving cars. And that's what digital securities are. They're so much more efficient. There's so fewer middlemen. You can trade on multiple exchanges, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, you know what Robinhood is. I don't know if you've got kids, but my kid's on that because he thinks it's sport betting. It's not sports betting. It's actually investing. But at the same time, they want to trade 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is the Amazon generation. And they want delivery today. They don't understand if a press release comes out on a 4:30 on a Friday. What do you mean I can't get out of the position? It's bad news. No, you got to wait till 9 o'clock in the morning. The equity markets, the way they're set up today, they're set up as if, it's the 1800s. You got morning newspaper coming out, the evening newspaper, and people on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange that have to commute back to their homes in Long Island. And it doesn't work like that anymore. Now everyone gets their news 24-hour cycle on Twitter. On top of that, you don't have people on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. As you know, the floor of the New York Stock Exchange is maybe a Fox or a CNBC sound studio. The reality is computers are doing the trading and computers can work all night long. Currency markets are open 24 hours. Crypto markets are open 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's only equities that are sitting there saying, oh no, we need to get some time off.
So would you say because of the social media age, like you've been talking about, like where everybody wants it now, and like you said, like people that used to deal in stocks, when that gets cut off at 4 o'clock, the rush is gone there. But in the social media age, people want to do it continuously. Is this what's happening? Where we're seeing a shift not only from the social media but also in currency?
Of course, and everything. And look, think of the folks outside the United States that don't get an opportunity to invest in U.S. equities. There's a lot of folks in the third world that would love to buy a U.S. stock, but maybe it's a month's pay to buy a $14 stock. But if you can do fractionalization, which is what digital securities do, you can help people in third world countries invest tiny, small amounts, but which start to add up for them. And suddenly they've got a 401k or they've got a portfolio that's also in Amazon. Why should Amazon just be for the rich countries? Why can't it be for every country in the world? And what we're trying to do is democratize ownership of equities, of fixed income, of all sorts of ideas. One of the cool things we have is, you've probably read about Taylor Swift. She had the $400 million music catalog. Using our security token that we came through the SEC with, she could have sold that to her millions of fans, and they could have been investors in Taylor Swift's music with her.
Wow.
And they would go out there and talk to everyone and say, you got to play more Taylor Swift. And the price of their investment would go up on the back of that. So actors, actresses, musicians, all of them can also use security tokens as a way to reach their fans and get close to their fans. And you know, we're just scratching the surface of what we can do with digital assets.
Yeah, this is obviously very, very in its early stages, and it just sounds so exciting. But I want to know this, though. I know you know these types of stories, and I know the viewers always like to hear these types of things. Can you tell us some of the instances where you've heard of people where, unfortunately, they just sold too fast, and now you look at something? Can you give us a little bit of that?
I don't have I'd sold too fast, but I've certainly met many people in this industry that almost look at Bitcoin as a religion, and I'll tell you why. They were hard down on their luck, maybe 7 years ago. Didn't know where to go, where to search, and they bought some Bitcoin, maybe $5,000 worth or $10,000 worth. Not that much, but they felt, here's something that someone's telling me a great story about, and we always get this. Our friends always call us up and say, well, I've got this great thing, you got to get into it. But back then, it was really hard to buy Bitcoin, and some people did that, and those investments are now worth hundreds of millions of dollars today. And there's a lot of folks that jumped on that bandwagon very, very early, when it was a huge risk and institutions weren't involved. And to buy it, you had to do it. You're going through all sorts of hoops. There wasn't the Coinbase you could just download and start doing a trade automatically. And folks did that, and they've done supremely well from this asset class. Now, the returns are similar to the guys that used to get involved in something like Amazon. Now, if you've ever looked at a chart of Amazon in the early days of Amazon, you had a big spike up, like the spike up in Bitcoin to 20,000, a collapse down, like the collapse in Bitcoin down to 3,800, and then a steady move higher again. And I think that when you have a new technology and it's introduced to people, at first there's an excitement, a euphoria. Then people realize that they're tripping over themselves. Then there's this sobering up moment, and then there's a steady amount of accumulation. And we're certainly in that accumulation stage now with cryptocurrency, in that everyone's talking about it. When your grandmother's insurance company like Mass Mutual begins to invest in Bitcoin, you know that everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, did we, for Bitcoin, did we hit the FOMO stage yet, or has that not even hit yet?
I don't think so. In 2017, if you were to Google, where do I buy Bitcoin? It was through the roof. And if you look at it today, the number of searches there, it's nowhere close. But also the average ticket size back in 2017, the larger ticket size is maybe $20,000 or $30,000. The ticket sizes that are going through today from Grayscale Bitcoin Trust Company or from PayPal, where their 365 members can now buy on the PayPal account. Or you look at someone like, Guggenheim that just came out with theirs. These guys are writing tickets for $100 million, $500 million, $600 million. That's much more. I mean, pretty soon we're going to run out of the Bitcoin that's available on the exchanges. And I think that that's sort of like, what people are looking at, and they're realizing as soon as we run out of the freely available or the people that are willing to sell, that's when you get that sort of spike up. But there's still people that want to take profit, as they call it, or that want to get out of it. But I'd say the vast majority of people that I meet, they're almost like the gold bugs. And the gold bugs, you must know some. They keep the gold and they put it underneath their floorboards and they never touch it. People don't trade gold, really. They kind of sit with it. And people are like that with Bitcoin. They buy it, they hold it, and they'll stay with it for a long, long time. And you'll never get it out of their cold, dead hands. And I think that that's what's going to see the price appreciate.
And where do we think for this coming year, 2021, what can we see with Bitcoin price right now?
Well, I'll tell you what others think. I think Citibank came out with something that they saw that would go to $300,000 by the end of next year. Guggenheim Investments came out yesterday and said that their fundamental analysis puts it at $400,000, the real true value of Bitcoin. Now, we've already gone up a lot this year. I think that next year we will tickle around $60,000 for one Bitcoin. But look, I'm not someone that makes assumptions of where something's going. I'll tell you this, I think it's going higher, but it could be 10 times higher, 3 times higher. Who cares? Higher's higher.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in this age of where people just want now, and they want to see the returns higher. So, I mean, this could be the perfect setup for them and spot for them. Douglas, is there anything else you'd like to add? Maybe I didn't ask you about?
Look, what I'd like to say is that I think that there's lots of ways that you can get involved now in the digital currencies. And it's not just digital, there's digital, everyone always talks about Bitcoin, but there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, there's a lot of different cryptocurrencies. Just because one cryptocurrency is much less in price than Bitcoin doesn't mean that it's better. It's just an exchange rate. So don't buy something because it's really cheap. Try to find out why exactly you want to buy it. And at the same time, take a look at digital securities. Obviously, we're the first one in this space, but I think that we've got the domain knowledge that's going to make us very, very exciting for folks if they find out about us. Look up inx.co, take a look. We'd love to talk to you.
All right, there. Exciting times is definitely here as we close out the year. Douglas Borthwick of IMX Limited, thank you so much for your time and really giving us some insight onto this really, really upcoming digital currency. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, sticking with consumer news.